when you lose late in a playoff season, a Super Bowl, or yes, a conference championship game, and I guess this goes for any team that loses a playoff game, but certainly when you lose it late, and certainly when you lose it when you think you're not going to lose, it leaves a mark. It's what we call a hangover. The Super Bowl hangover. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who lost 2 coordinators. Look how far away from the championship they were than the closest they came to it last year. I mean, they were really far away for a team that actually made the playoffs. And anytime you lose, and you maybe lose a coordinator, you lose this player, you lose that player, you lose a little bit of hope. You also may lose some confidence in your own game, or maybe your coach. It's tough to overcome. That's why it's difficult to lose, and why it's difficult to push that rock up that same hill again. Because right now, there are 30 teams in the NFL that are in Mobile, Alabama today with their scouts looking at top prospects, already with the page turned to next year. And there are 2 franchises that haven't completely changed the page yet because they haven't gotten head coaches yet, Seattle and Washington. And some haven't turned the page yet, I guess, completely because they still have some general managers. But the 2 that haven't turned the page yet that you want to be like when you're at a Senior Bowl are the ones getting ready for the Super Bowl as well. So the 2 teams, though, that are there, hoping that they would be there with one more game left, Detroit and Baltimore, those are the ones that are really going to have to sit down and go through the mourning process and go through the what could we have done differently. And Baltimore is going to have that, I think, for their offensive scheme. Again, Brian Baldinger will join later on when Gus Edwards has a 15-yard run in the first half and then doesn't have another run until the second half. 3 runs for 20 yards, Gus Edwards, against a team in the Chiefs that got gashed on the ground by Buffalo. And you kept on throwing it and throwing it and throwing it despite the many times you were banging your head against the wall. That's one thing. When you're the Detroit Lions, though, and you haven't been to the Super Bowl ever, I mean, Baltimore's got 2 in the case when they stroll into their home building. When you haven't been to the Super Bowl ever, and you're up 17 at halftime, and you have an opportunity to go up 17 again in the middle of the third quarter, and you don't because you go for it on 4th down, and then you have a chance to go tie the game despite blowing the lead with 7 minutes to go, and you don't. You go for it on 4th down again. These are the things that linger. These are the things that absolutely linger. And again, what you're seeing from a lot of folks over the last 24 hours is a rallying to Dan Campbell from his own locker room, and also from a bunch of people who say you got to stay true to yourself. Now, my 2 cents again on Dan Campbell is he's going to be Coach of the Year, I believe. As you know, from this seat, I said I would have voted for Kevin Stefanski had I had a vote.
You don't have votes, Rick.
I
right, Rich?
don't have votes.
You don't have official votes.
Correct. I don't have official votes. It's just me from here from this seat. But thank you for
I just want that on the record.
Clarifying
Yeah,
that.
of course.
Thank you.
We need to change
And so,
that.
no, I know. And, you know, I'm sure the Campbell family wouldn't be happy with me for that decision. But he is 100% worthy of winning it. And I think he's going to win it when it's all said and done. And there's a reason why the Lions got there. Everybody's saying because these are the types of decisions he would do over and over and over again. Yet he didn't do it at the end of the first half. He took the points, which was the wise decision to make, which shows that there is within him the understanding that there are some moments to take the foot off the gas pedal and play for the next down, play for the next quarter, play for the next game if you can, by just taking the points and not revving the motor, not going to, as I said, Spinal Tap 11 all the time. But he is the guy that it did cost them the 2 seed in Dallas until the Packers, of all teams, put them back into the second best seeded position in the NFC by bouncing the Cowboys. So not every decision that's made costs in the end, in the long run. That is, however, if you've got 3 weeks of runway in front of you. Not 2 more quarters of runway in front of you. Or in the case of going for a field goal, only a quarter and a half of runway in front of you if you could get back to the 17-point lead. And then you hear today again, hey, Dan Campbell has a kicker that misses 55% of his kicks from that range. My question is, then why the hell is that kicker on the team? Right?
I mean, I'm not for someone losing their job, but yeah.
But these are all the postmortems that people are going to be thinking about. Like, hey, why did we do that? What would have happened had we not done that? Unless you can just put it in a box and say, this is the way we got there. This is the way we always do our things. This is the way things go. And the end of that occurs. And you put it away. And then you have to have a head coach who puts it away for you by putting in perspective to let everyone know that there is a rock, there is a hill. You're going to have to push it up that same hill every single time that we don't make our ultimate goal. And that guy's Dan Campbell. And this is what he had to say on Monday in his day after press conference.
You know, the whole point was to create a core that had certain standards. You know, obviously they got to be good players, and we have that. But they got to be a certain way, and there's got to be a certain mindset and a certain identity, and we have that with our core. And we got to add pieces that are like-minded. We got to add more talent, more competition that thinks the same way that group of guys in that locker room does. And it's non-negotiable if it's not. There's no level of talent that is worth bringing something that doesn't fit what we're about in there. And so that's very important. But as far as, look, we'll talk about that when it gets, we got to start all over. Yeah, we have the foundation. There's things that we won't have to start all the way from scratch, but man, there's got to be that hunger. There's got to be that work. There's got to be that attention to detail. There's got to be that urgency. And in that regard, you're starting all over again. And if you don't, you think you're just going to walk out there because you went to the NFC Championship game, you got another thing coming. That's how you become average in a hurry. And they'll know that, they understand that, and as we get to next year, that'll be the message. But you know, that's really it.
That's really it.
Yeah, I said it yesterday, and all year we've been saying it. You can see why guys love playing for this dude. He leaves everything out there. You don't have to guess how he's feeling or what he's thinking. He will tell you. And I thought it was kind of refreshing, I guess is one word, but when he said, look, we don't know if we're going to get back here. It's going to be twice as hard next year, but we got to keep working.
I understand, but there's ways to be true to yourself by not always being the same. That's
I agree with you there too.
And that may be part of Dan Campbell's journey as well. Because, you know, if going for it on fourth down twice when he did is an example of the grit, then what happened at the end of the first half? You know, you take the 3. Sometimes taking the 3 and putting the pressure back on the other team rather than putting the pressure on your own team to make must-have plays. Just dialing it back a little bit. And then when it's time to push the pedal to the metal, know when to do that.
Yeah, it's a golf phrase, but sometimes par is good enough to win.
Right. You know, you don't go broke taking a profit.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know,
I mean, when I was a broadcaster to first start out, less is more.
Yep.
You know, when I first came on, I thought, like, I got to be true to myself. I'm a former stand-up comic who's always wanted to get on SportsCenter. I want to sit there. I want to entertain. Right. And I realized, you know what? Sometimes informing is more important than entertaining. And then every now and then, if I keep informing, then I can be more entertaining when I have the shot.
Rich, I think what you're trying to say is sometimes you take the middle key.
Sometimes you take the middle
You know
key.
what I mean?
When you're on The Price is Right.
Because even when I lose, I win.
Sometimes you take the middle key.
Well, I would have to have been looking at the board.
But you didn't
to-
because you were trying to entertain
entertain.
a crowd of what, like 15 people because it was in the middle of COVID?
Yeah, and they all were laughing. So, I mean,
Okay.
look, if
Hey.
any one of you had the opportunity to make Drew Carey laugh and he did, you would have kept on doing
Understood.
it.
That's what I'm saying.
Good one,
It's
Chris.
Drew
Yeah.
Carey's fault.
It's in all walks of
That's
life.
what friends do
It's
is
in all walks of life.
they remind good
You-
friends of their shortcomings.
If you're
Was it
crazy.
really?
To make a point. To make a point.
Trying to further the conversation.
Unfortunately, if only the Lions got a ping pong table as a parting gift
And
for
a
losing
popcorn
in
maker.
San
Yeah.
Francisco, that they won't bring in to work.
Haters gonna hate.
Even when you lose, I win.
There you go, LeVar.
So, but I'm just assuming and that the Lions players are going to buy what he's selling right there,
I think so too.
which is let's do it again.
yeah,
And the
it's
only
going to
way-
be that much harder. It's going to be that
well,
much harder.
because the Packers are going to be better, and the Bears are going to have a quarterback that I believe is got the skill set, if properly watered and fertilized, to use the Sirianni phrase, to have a Mahomes type game
Yep.
in him, and you have to assume the Vikings quarterback won't have his Achilles explode in the middle of the season. So. But I'm sending out verbal hugs to all Lions fans out there as well.
Absolutely.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.